everyone, and welcome to another local show on Football Talk Podcast. My name's Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. What on earth is going on at Liverpool? Four defeats on the bounce in the Premier League. That is unheard of when it comes to our team. Are we in crisis? Unfortunately, we are. Doesn't matter how much of a positive fan you are, this form is very worrying, and we have to speak about the coach, who, of course, is under fire right now. And some fans have said that his days are numbered. So we'll speak about Arne Slot in more detail during the show. But let's quickly review last night's match. But before I do, one thing that frustrated me before even a ball was kicked was the formation. Why on earth did we switch back to a 4-2-3-1 formation when we changed our shape against Frankfurt to a 4-4-2, and we looked like such a better team? We played with more fluidity. The players played with more confidence. They played their more natural game. So I'm not sure why Arsenal reverted back to the old formation. But in terms of this game, surprise, surprise, we concede a goal in the opening minutes of the game. Technically not a set piece, as the goal came from a throw-in. But why can't we defend in these situations? These players seem so clueless in these moments. Looks like we can't defend a set piece or aerial challenge to save our lives. Then moments later, Liverpool have a penalty shout as Gakpo is fouled in the box by Nathan Collins. For me, a definite penalty. I watched it again today, and my opinion remains. I feel like we were robbed there, but because of that, you know, play was waved on. Brentford capitalised and scored in the other end to make it 2-0. In terms of that goal, Ekitike misplaces a pass as he was doing a 1-2 with Florian Wirtz. Brentford hit us on the counter through Sade, who's through on goal. Konate not showing any real urgency to battle the play in that moment, and the German attacker slots it to give his team the lead. Let's talk about Konate. What on earth was he doing? He didn't even try to bust a gut to, get back and, use his physique to push him out of the way or disrupt the attack. Just let him go. And tried to nudge his hand towards the end. Like, what on earth was that? Absolutely shocking defending from Ibu there. Cherkes then pulls one back just before half time, giving Liverpool a slight hope, going into the second half. And the turning point in the second half was the penalty given to Brentford. And I've looked at it again, like I have done with the Gakpo incident in the first half as well. For me, it's not a penalty. I've watched it so many times. That foul was committed just outside the box. And even if you disagree with that, it wasn't a clear and obvious challenge in the box. So you always have to give the favour to the team, because if it's not a clear cut foul, it should not be given at all. But we live in an age where the referees or the officiating in the English game is so inconsistent that it doesn't come as a surprise when things aren't given to you in this sort of way. And the ref, let's not be around the bush, was quite shocking in this game. Pulled an injury himself, which is laughable as well. I'm not using that as an excuse, in terms of what happened during the game. But back to the game itself, Igor steps up and converts a penalty to make it 3-1 for Brentford. And then Salah gets a goal with a fantastic finish, to be fair. By that time, it was too little too late. Overall, terrible performance and a shocking result. 4 defeats on the bounce. Still can't get my head around that. That's something that I've not really, envisioned our team to go through. Even when we drop a point, when we get a draw, like I would literally do a match reaction thinking I've lost. But with 4 defeats on the bounce, I just don't know how to react right now, honestly. But let's talk about Arne Slot. You know, I'm not completely slot out. I know a lot of fans, and I've seen a lot of content creators, branch that message out that they are slot out. I'm not quite there. I still feel like he's got enough credit in the tank to try and change things around. But I'm very, very concerned about the direction of this club. In terms of this game, Slot got it all wrong tactically against Brentford. Why did he change the formation? I had a feeling he would. It just seems like a typical modern coach thing to do, where You'll make a few tweaks for one game because you need to get a result. And once you've got that result, you're back to your old ways. That's what I thought that was going to happen, and unfortunately it did. And it's disappointing because the way we played against Frankfurt, I'm not expecting us to beat every team 5-1. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But it's the way we played. The players seemed, you know, they knew exactly what to do on the pitch. They played with more freedom. We were playing, in patterns. We were playing with more fluidity. There was more energy, more urgency in our play in all departments. It was a completely different performance against Frankfurt. Yes, it's a different opposition. It's a German team, but if you compare it to Brentford, they are probably the better side. So I don't know why fans are using that comparison. That, oh, it's the Champions League. Champions League is a competition full of high caliber teams. So if we've beaten a team like that, it's still a good sort of way to look towards your other games and feel like if we got a result there, why don't we continue that on to the next game? He hasn't done that. And look, as I said on the top of the show, we are in crisis. I can't blindly support the coach just because he's Liverpool manager and not be honest, because for me, quite frankly, this season has been an absolute shit show. Even the games that we've won early in the season, let's be honest, we never won those games convincingly. Those games were won by last minute winners and, you know, mistakes from the opponents or last minute penalties. They were not games where we controlled the play and we pretty much, blew teams away. We haven't done that so far this season, you know. And how long was that going to last? You can only ride your luck as much as possible, right? It's not going to, you know, it's not going to surpass throughout the whole season where you start doing last minute winners every game. It doesn't work like that. You know, my concern is the way we start games. We start games in such terrible fashion that we concede goals in opening 10 minutes. And then what happens is in the second half, Arne Slot's completely changed the formation. We'll end up playing a 4-2-4 formation and we're throwing the kitchen sink at the team. Now, against big teams, when you want to try and get an edge, I get it. You got to do what you can to try and get a point or get something out of the game. But we're doing that every single game. Doesn't matter who the opponents are. And in this situation, it was against Brentford. For me, it's an absolute joke the way we're playing right now. Um, and it's such a crazy feeling right now because we had arguably our best transfer window ever earlier this summer. But we've digressed as a team. Make that make sense. Last season, he inherited Jurgen Klopp's squad, a squad that almost won the league in Jurgen's last season. Now, also didn't have to make too many wholesale changes. He only brought in one player in Chiesa, who he doesn't rate clearly. Made a few tweaks in terms of our build-up play and approach to games, and that led us to winning the title. But right now, in this current day, is he folding under pressure? I think he may be. I think it is a possibility because the expectations are different now. Last season was a free hit. Even if we didn't qualify for the Champions League, it would be understandable to Liverpool fans because we know Arne Slot's coming. He's replaced an icon in Jurgen Klopp, and those are very big shoes to fill. So if he had a mediocre season, it would have been acceptable. But right now, it feels like it's a complete turn of the table where right now we're struggling to pick up form, but last year we ended up winning the league. It's just bizarre in terms of what is happening right now. And the biggest test for any team that wins a league title is to go again and win it back to back. In recent pre-match conference that Slot did earlier on, he was complaining about how teams are playing the low block and long balls against us, and we haven't found a solution. Why are you saying that so publicly? Like you don't need to be so transparent to the media because it's making him look silly right now. He's making excuses that he's not able to beat these defensive teams. We're Liverpool Football Club. We are the champions of England right now. This is how every team plays against Liverpool or elite teams in world football. So why is he moaning? The more he does that, the more he loses credibility as a coach. Now, I'm not saying he's a fraud, but there are a lot of fans suggesting that because of these comments that he's coming out with in the last couple of conferences, what Slot needs to do right now is get his coaching staff together and come up with some solutions. Because right now we're playing with no identity. I don't know if we're a counter-attacking team or We're a ball playing possession team that likes to control games. We're not doing any of that. So what is our approach? What is our identity right now? And the big question for everyone in the chat: has he lost the changing room? I don't think he has quite, but I think the signs are there. I think they have lost, a little bit of faith in the coach because right now, application, the attitude is not there with the players. It's below par this season. No one is playing with real determination other than Dominic Szoboszlai. We lack energy and intensity in our play because the simple thing is the players are not working hard enough. And this is not a question of ability. We have to question the mentality of these players. A whole squad doesn't become shit overnight. So something is clearly wrong right now. One thing came to my mind of, trying to assess this crazy issues that we're having right now. Are we underestimating John Heitinga's role last season? Because when he came to the club, he was a very highly regarded coach. And from the training footage that we saw on social media and on the YouTube channel, he had a hands-on role with training, and he pretty much had a helping hand into how the team was set up. It could be a factor, but regardless, that's not enough to suggest that it's the main reason or one of the big reasons why we're currently seeing a downfall in this team. 4 defeats on the bounce in the Premier League. That's Roy Hodgson kind of form. Not only that, we've lost 11 games in the last 25 games from what I believe. But of course, we've got to put that into context. When we won the title, we were on holiday mode. Players were in Dubai, Slot was in Ibiza. They weren't really, turning up to these games. So, we've got to put a bit of context in that matter. But it's black and white. We still haven't, performed so far this year, this calendar year. And it's still not acceptable in the way the team has performed this season. And Slot needs to get some results. The first thing he needs to do is play that 4-4-2 formation in the next game, just like we did against Frankfurt, because it worked. It might not be the ultimate formation or the final solution, but it's something for now. We need to work towards finding the formula or the winning formula going forward. Even Mohamed Salah's goal against Brentford, he only scored that because he was playing more central in that game. He wasn't playing out wide when he scored that goal. That was an instinctive finish there. And that is Mohamed Salah right now. We have to use him as a striker. This is why I've been saying 4-4-2 diamond is the formation to go with because you're allowed to play Salah more centrally. Then you've got your fullbacks or your right side centre mid occupying those wide areas to help, provide service for him and his strike partner, whether it's Isak or Ekitike. That should be his role now going forward. He shouldn't have to think about taking on the fullback because he doesn't have that in him anymore. He's not that dynamic that player anymore. He's not going to take on that fullback. He's not going to do those kind of runs. He's a clinical player now. He's a player that is thinking about the end product, trying to get onto the end of things, i.e., either an assist or a goal. But for me, you've got to play more centrally now. That is the new role if you want to get the best out of Mohamed Salah in this team. But look, our next run of fixtures are not easy. To be fair, it doesn't matter who the teams are. We're struggling against every team. So the next game is against Crystal Palace. It's a Carabao Cup match. It's going to be interesting. Is he going to rotate or is he going to play a strong team? Then we've got Aston Villa at home on the weekend. Then we've got Real Madrid the following week, and then we've got Man City away. So that's 3 games in a row at Anfield. So the crowd, they're going to have to play a part in terms of building atmosphere for the team because they need our support. And I'll be honest, if things don't improve in the coming weeks, the slot out stance will be louder and louder. And from my side, I'm not quite there yet. But if we continue to lose, it might be where I'll be a bit more vocal about that. And look, he's not just the sole problem, even though I think he is the reason of our current downfall. But the players need to be held accountable for their performances so far this season as well. You know, some of the players that I feel have been below par. Janate, last apart from yesterday, last couple of games, he's improved, but he's been a shadow of himself so far this season. Kirkes just hasn't adapted to his new surroundings at all. And, you know, when Robertson came to the club, when we had Moreno, Moreno started as the first choice left back, and then when he picked up an injury, that's when it gave the door for Robertson to walk through. Right now, I feel like we need to utilize Robertson a bit more and try and ease Kirkes in. I don't play him every game because it's not helping his confidence. Some coaches feel like the more you play him, it'll build. I don't think it will because he's playing for a club that is of the highest of statures right now. He's playing alongside Van Dijk, who is arguably one of the best centre backs, in Liverpool history. So when you've got that kind of figure alongside you, that's pressure to perform as well. And also, he's replacing, or he's been regarded as the long-term replacement for Robertson. So that's pressure on his side as well. And to deliver week in, week out and try and get the fans, to support him. He's having to do a lot so early on in his career. So we have to manage him carefully, I think. And we've got to rotate between him and Robertson more this season. Bradley and Frimpong, they've had their own issues. They both have struggled with injuries or fitness, and none of them have really claimed the spot in an undisputed way. They are both fighting for that position. So, you know, it's a position that has become a bit of a problem for us because we've lacked creativity on that side of the pitch. McAllister has been an absolute shadow of himself. He's got no sort of strength or anything about him. He's getting pushed around like he's a little kid on in the playground. He's getting walked past like he's not even there. It's a very worrying sight to see the way he's playing right now. Mohamed Salah, he's not performed to his level this season either. And it could be a combination thing from a personal point of view or from a tactical point of view, because right now we have adjusted our sort of approach to games. It's not all going through Mohamed Salah. Mohamed Salah is being regarded as a creator more so than not, and he's not the focal point anymore. So that's a slight tweak or adjustment to our game plan, and he hasn't quite adapted to that at all. Gakpo has been hot and cold for me. Of course, he's gathered a few goals and assists in the last few games, but he's not performed to his level that he did last season. And Isak, I'm not trying to you know belittle him or put him down as well, but he hasn't found his rhythm, or he hasn't found his sharpness in front of goal. So that's something that's a work in progress going forward. And the only positive that I can take right now, not probably in recent games to be fair, but Van Dijk, showed good, his normal signs early on, but even he's shown a bit of a decline or a bit of frailty in his game. So Bozlai is the undisputed player that I feel like, you know, deserves all the praise right now. In every game that he plays, he's performed at a very high level. And the silly thing about his situation is that he's been made to play in different roles every game. He'll be a number six. He'll be playing in the double pivot as a number six. He'll be playing as a number eight or as a number 10, or he drops over to right back. Like, he's playing too many different roles in one game. So give the guy some stability because he's the one that's actually performing to his level. Gravenberch, before he picked up his ankle injury, looked decent in our midfield. Ekitike has shown, glimpses and flashes of his brilliance. But of course, we've only seen it here and there because of the rotation between him and Isak. Chiesa, a player that maybe we didn't have high regards for because of, his lesser impact last season. But whenever he's come on, whenever he's played, he's been impactful in his team. But unfortunately, he's not got a pathway into the team. Arne Slot clearly doesn't rate him and he doesn't utilize him at all. So that's a concern right there. But he is a positive. He won Player of the Month award for us. And Arne Slot went on to say that, he's very surprised that he won the award, considering he's a fifth choice attacker. Why would you say the fifth choice attacker out loud like that? Give the guy some credit. So there clearly is an issue between the coach and the player there. And finally, Curtis Jones, I think he's performed to a very, very high level in recent weeks. And there's a reason why he's starting the last couple of games, because he's shown, a different approach to the game. He's shown that, he's ready to fight for the badge. And that's something I can't say everyone is doing right now. So it's a huge concern going forward. But you know, the next game we've got a few days now against Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup, so it's going to be interesting to see what Slot does. Does he start um, with a strong lineup, or does he rotate and play some of the squad players slash um, youngsters? I think he needs to go strong. Personally, I think he needs to play his best team. We've got to try and bring confidence into our game right now. And right now, I can't see it happening. So yeah, let's see what happens. I'm just gonna go through some of the comments in the chat. Sorry, Burton Jav, big up Jason. He says on TikTok, Liverpool manager be sacked. FC20 says big up Aussie Slot out for me. We are all doubting Slot right now, so why wouldn't the players? It's true. It is very true. I have to agree with that. That's why I don't think that he's completely lost the dressing room, but I feel like they have lost faith in him to an extent. Berta Jab says playing like championship team. I'd probably say we're playing like a League Two team, nowhere near a championship team. If I'm being honest with you, the way we're playing at the minute, they'd probably beat us. Yeah, most teams would beat us. Dutch Big Steve. Okay. Um, LFC20 says, does Slot even know his strongest 11 yet? All rotations tweaks. No, he doesn't know his strongest 11. He doesn't even know his strongest formation right now. That's what it comes across. The formation that we used last season, and it's funny, when he first joined as a coach, I think someone presented the question that, he plays or he played in a sort of a 4-2-3-1 formation, and he didn't like that. He was like, "Who told you I play a 4-2-3-1?" If you look at my history, I play a 4-3-3. So even he doesn't know what sort of formation he plays. But with the squad of players that we had last season, those crop of players suited the 4-2-3-1 formation. But a lot of those players have also gone now. So when you've brought in a lot of players, you have to play to their skill sets. Whether he was the person that made the final decision for these players to come in, I guess we'll never know. But as coach, it's your responsibility to find the solutions and find the formation or the winning formula that is going to help the team going forward. And he's not doing that. When you've got the likes of Ekitike and Isak, for me, they have to play up top together. You know, Ekitike has definitely performed to a level where you can't drop him now. I don't think you can. So he needs to find a formation. I've been saying 4-4-2 diamond for a good few months now because I feel like that's the one that fits every player in this team. So when you look at our fullbacks, when you're playing a diamond, you've got the likes of Szoboszlai or McAllister or Jones, whoever's in that team, as in the two centre backs on the sides. They're the ones that will cover the ground for the fullbacks when they bomb forward. And then you've got the number 6 who will literally, shop for the centre backs behind him. And then you've got a player like Averts and a number 10 who's got the freedom to roam around and be that creative spark in the team. And then you've got two attackers, Isak, Tika, or Salah, two of the three, and they can exploit their sort of area in front of them, whether they're attacking the channels or if they're, inside the 6-yard box, that's the dynamics of having another strike partner. One can attack the channel, one can, go inside the box, and it just gives you that unpredictability going forward. So I don't know. I feel like that's the formula that would work with this current crop of players, but is Arne Slot too stubborn to switch it up and change his methodology? I don't know. Only time will tell. I'm not sure who you support. He said Lord Rodney says Slot getting absolutely roasted. I'm here for it. Well, hope you're enjoying yourself. That's a bit Aussie. Would you start Mo on Wednesday or changes? Mo's not the problem. It's the whole team. So I know there's this narrative that he's the problem. He's not been great. I'm not going to defend him, but there's a lot more to the team than just Mohamed Salah misfiring right now. I feel like the players aren't playing with confidence. They're not playing to their positions. And I know it sounds very simplistic when you say that, but when you're tweaking certain roles for certain players, and the team aren't able to build partnerships with each other because there's too much chopping and changing, and you're not able to form relationships with each other on the pitch. and because of that, it's been a bit disruptive for the team. So I I I don't know in terms of the shape. I think we need to revert back to a 4-4-2. I think that would be for me. The 4-4-2 diamond is the formation, but for Arne Slot, because he's done the 4-4-2, I'll at least he'll try that, and let's see how it goes. For me, the 4-4-2 diamond works very well for everyone in the squad. Um, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. That's it. Should we have had that pen last night, Ozzy? I think so. That Gakpo foul for me was a penalty. Um, and it's funny when people look at the replay, they're looking at the ankle. That's not where the foul was. The foul was just above his knee, on his thigh. You can fall down if someone hits you on the thigh. It's not just if you get tackled on your ankles, that's when you fall down. So I'm not sure, what's going on there, but um, yeah, I think it was a penalty. To be fair, Lord Ronnie said, for me, not utilizing Chiesa, Katika, and Rio when they all had momentum is awful management, and people will talk out their arseholes about Rio being too young. Well, in terms of Rio, I don't feel like we can put that pressure on the kid to be playing week in, week out. He's not ready for the first team. Chiesa, I feel like he should be utilized a lot more than he has, but clearly there's an issue between the player and the coach. Even if they don't admit it out in the public, there clearly is. Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like he's not able, because we're not winning. It's very hard to throw in players like Rio, Trey, Nioni, because it can affect their confidence when we're not getting results. Even putting him on yesterday, I don't think was the wise thing to do to put Rio on. But that's just my thoughts on that. Um, but look at James Dan, his career has ended with injury without even playing first team. When you're ready, you're ready. Um, he wasn't ready. He played really well for like the youth level, but he was never ready for the first team. And the issue of James Downs is not quite on his sort of talent; it's about staying fit. So if he's not able to play, we can't really get him into the team. So no, he's not ready for the first team. If he was ready, then we wouldn't have bought Isak or Ekitike now. No team has been passed against more than Liverpool this season. Yeah, Liverpool just not been controlling games at all. Reno's ready. He's physically gifted and technically gifted. He's ready to play 23 games a season. Okay. I don't think so personally, but that is your opinion. It's cowardice. I think you have to be very careful in terms of how you manage young players. He's only just turned 17. Let's not be around the bush. And we've had players like that in the past that we thought could be the next big thing, and unfortunately, it never panned out that way because we threw them in the first team fold too early, in my opinion. So for me, I'd rather play him in the cup games and an easy win, and then second half would have been the perfect time to give him that opportunity to stake a claim in that first team. Um, but also, Real predominantly plays on the left side, and Gakpo, I know he splits the fan base. He hasn't been that bad. He's done all right. I just feel like he's been very predictable in his play, so that's something that needs to be improved in terms of his variation, his play. Um, but Real will get his time. I'm sure. H says slough out. Um, Lord Wayne said, you say there's a reason you bought your saying, but what's the reason for not buying a CDM and centre back? The centre back, unfortunately, the Crystal Palace chairman was doing a Pilates class, so that's why that move wasn't materialized. The CDM, your guess is as good as mine. That was a priority position for me, but Slot probably put all his eggs in one basket, thinking Gravenberch's always going to be injury free, and we can rely on him all season. Well, that's coming to bite us on the backside right now because now he's injured. Although it's not a long term injury, but you know he wouldn't have enough faith to put on Endo, who on paper is the backup CDM, right? But for me, that position should have been sort of looked at in the summer, and unfortunately, it's going to cause us an issue going forward because we need that type of player in our team. We need someone to be defensive minded to clear up shop and not just always, be a technician. We need different types of players to add that balance in that team. And I really hope that it's an area that's addressed. I would love for it to be addressed in January, but I don't see the club doing that. It's something they probably got earmarked for next summer. But unfortunately, it's probably a little too late because it should have been an area we should have strengthened in the summer. Dad has asked why did he to the screen last for the pen on it? Pen or is he? What's that in reference to, Daz? I'm not too sure. Why did he go to the screen last penalty? I'm not too sure what you mean, Daz. Lord says over the summer, Liverpool got everything wrong, everything in terms of summer. I wouldn't go that far. I'll be honest, I was over the moon with with the spending that we did in the summer. Um, and I thought we brought the right players in, but the players are not playing to their skill set. That's the concern now because even Kirkes, he's not playing the way he played at Bournemouth. It's a complete different way. He's been asked to play a little bit deeper in some games, and then there's been games where he's making overlapping runs, but then the left winger's got no sort of awareness and he never plays him in. So it just hasn't worked so far, unfortunately. Blame who wants for that, but that's factual and is being evidenced now. No, I don't. Well, yeah, of course we're losing now, so of course it doesn't look great. But I wouldn't say that the summer was a failure. Um, only time will tell. We can't go based on a small window like that. But no, I'll have to disagree because you know, then all with me, presenting news during the summer, I was ecstatic about the players that we were signing. It just hasn't clicked right now, so. We have to just wait and see, what Arne Slot does. He needs to find it's the 4-2-3-1 is not going to work with this kind of players that we have. We have to switch it up. So that's something that has to come from the coach going forward. Groundberg, fantastic player, not a natural DM. I get what you mean. I think his natural game is he's probably an 8, more of a box to box. Um, but he can play at number 6 role very well. Um, I just feel like he needs a bit more support. He's been playing alongside McAllister, and unfortunately, that's another thing as well. Like in terms of our setup, we've had Gravenberch have more of a free role this year. You're saying that he's not a natural CDM, but he actually hasn't played as a CDM. He's been playing more as an 8 this year, or as a more of a free flowing midfielder because we've not had that sort of discipline structure in that midfield, and that's a problem for Slot because he's gone to playing a different way now. He's given Gravenberch the freedom to roam around and find himself a bit more closer to the final third rather than protecting the back line. So these are the issues. For me, it's more of a tactical issue right now, not the players. I think tactically, we're not set up the way we were last year. These little tweaks where he's trying to um, present as an unpredictability to the way we play. So for me, he's got it wrong in that way, and that's something that he needs to revert back to because last season, Gravenberch was always the player that was playing the deepest in the midfield, protecting the back four. He's not doing that this year, so for me, that's a bit of an issue. For me, there's a simple test of CDM. Would you play them at centre back in a traditional pairing in an emergency situation? If the answer is no, you don't have a CDM. We don't have a centre back. After Konate and Virgil van Dijk, who else is there? There's Joe Gomez, but let's be honest, we can't rely on him. So after that, you can't put Joe Gomez at CDM because if he gets injured, which unfortunately could be a strong possibility, we'll have no defensive midfield cover or a centre back cover. So what's the point? You've just used your only backup there, and then we have to wait until January to rectify it, which there's no guarantee that we will do. Ekitike was the right sign, and he's been completely mismanaged. He has been mismanaged. Um, but of course, when you sign Ekitike and Isak, you can't just expect Isak to be dropped. We spent a lot of money on him, so he's expected to be the first team player. He says, "What are your choices for DM?" Oh, I would say someone like Belieber would be really good in our team. I think he gives us that physicality that we have lacked in our midfield. So I think he'll bring something different to our team. I do like the look of Adam Wharton, but I'd have to watch him a lot more just to make sure if he's the right fit because I feel like defensively, he is sound, but I don't want it to be where he's too similar to the players around us. But I like the look of Wharton, Belieber. Those are the ones that stand out for me right now because I'm wanting a physical player, but can also be a deep playmaker, so has ball playing ability as well, not just a destroyer completely. Sure, many would be amazing, but I don't think that's a realistic target. So for me, I'd say Belieber if I had to pick one name. Um, that's it. I just checked on Flash Score app. Ryan Isak able to play for Sunday. So Groundberg, from what I've heard, could be available. He just had I think he twisted his ankle, so it wasn't like a huge injury. In terms of Isak, I'm not too sure because it was a groin issue, and he's been having that for quite a few months now. So I'm not too sure in terms of the extent of that, but hopefully, it's some good news. Um, okay, a TDM is someone who can drop into centre back and allow one of your centre back to push into midfield and switch as a game like a match runner. Yeah, that is true, but that's not how it always works. Um, because that's why I wanted to play a 4-4-2 diamond because with a 4-4 diamond, you've got Gravenberch dropping in between the two centre backs, so it ends up forming as a back three, and then you have your two fullbacks, being a bit more adventurous, and then they are providing the width and the creativity from the flanks, and it allows the likes of Szoboszlai and McAllister, who would be your two top midfielders on paper, and Wirtz, um, doing that. So yeah, you're right, but every team has a different way of using their CDMs. We don't play with single pivot anymore. We generally play with double pivot. So, it'll be a different shape in terms of how we play against different opponents. But this season, we've not done anything. So, yeah, it doesn't even matter, to be fair. It's not just exited that in this match. He scores or assists every time he comes on. Slot still don't start him. Yeah, that is a concern as well. Um, Yeah, I get your point, but my point is that that's not how we play. We play with double pivot. If you watch how we played last season, we had two defensive midfielders in our team, so it's a different variation. But this year, we're not even playing the way we did last season, so it's a mess. It's a mess, and you pretty much confirmed it there as well. Um, do you know if Allison could be fit for Madrid or City? Uh, I don't think he will be. We haven't got any clear sort of date. Because when he picked up the injury, they said 6 weeks, and this was just before the international break. So on paper, um, the return date would be mid-November, but I don't think so. Especially as it's a recurring issue that he's having, I think it's his hamstrings, isn't it? So yeah, you don't want to, rush someone so soon. Even though he's a goalkeeper, he's not really running around, but he has had his fair share of injuries. Um, but who knows? Because I know Arne Slot, whenever Allison is fit and ready, he's played him in straight away. So it could be possible. If he's fully fit, he'll come into the team. And quite frankly, I've not been very impressed with Mamadashvili. Watching him makes me nervous, especially when the ball comes to feet. Um, yeah, his distribution is quite questionable. And even his shot stopping, it's not clean in terms of, the way. So there'll be times where I'm expecting him to catch it, but he's parrying it away. And, when the cross is coming, he's like flapping the ball away as well. So he hasn't got the grasp of, English football right now. Um, but yeah, only time will tell in terms of who is available. But we'll have to wait. We're playing next week. So let's see, what crop of players will be selected, whether it's a strong team or if it's going to be um, a bit of a rotated squad with squad players slash young players. So yeah, only time will tell. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Burton Jab, NFC20, Lord Rodney Trotter, and Daz for your comments, and H as well. Appreciate your engagement as always, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. In terms of upcoming shows, we will be doing a match preview on Tuesday for the Liverpool versus Palace game, and hopefully we'll do a watch along for that game with the match reaction as well. So hopefully we go back to winning ways, but only time will tell. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.